What's up, Buccaneers fans, and welcome back to another episode of Hear the Cannons, presented by BucsGameday.com, Sports Illustrated's one and only website strictly covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. My name is Caleb, writer and reporter with Bucs Game Day. You can follow me on X at CHSNull. With us today is the founder of BucsGameday.com, Logan Robinson, as well as our lead editor at BucsGameday.com, River Wells, at River H. Wells on X as well. Obviously, rookie minicamp just came and went. A lot of good stuff. Shilo Sanders, Desmond Watson, some of those undrafted guys. The rookies that were drafted, some Tez Johnson makes some big plays that I was able to see, as well as third-round draft pick Jacob Parrish. These two guys were there in attendance at $1 to be able to break everything down for you guys. But before we get started, head over to BucsGameday.com. We've got a ton of information, ton of articles, ton of content flowing out for you guys. So go check us out. We're going to have the schedule release coming up tomorrow. We'll probably have a pop-up show coming up some point later this week that you guys will be able to see if you are subscribed to our YouTube. So head over to YouTube, type in Bucs Game Day as well. You'll find all of our content there, video content, press conferences, post-game stuff as well. There, subscribe. That's how you'll get notified that we're going live. But without further ado, guys, I just want to toss it over to you guys. I wasn't able to be in attendance for the rookie minicamp that was going on, but I saw a lot of great stuff coming from it. Just what were the initial vibes there with football being back?
Well, I think for River and I, and also too, we had JC on hand with us for the first day. I think there was a lot of excitement. I think you got a whole ton of cool storylines to follow, of course, with Jason Light surprising all of us on here when we were previewing this NFL draft. And I'd mentioned there might be a thing where Jason decides to be like, no, we're going to pick a name that you weren't even talking about or predicting. And sure enough, he did. So
and
being
lo
able
and
to
behold.
watch, and being able to watch, the Ohio State wide receiver with Emeka Egbuka, being able to speak with him as well, and just seeing him in person, the way he moved. I'm sure we'll speak about him later on in this episode. But and then you also had some, undrafted storylines with Desmond Watson, which has been a big hit on our website over there. A lot of the Gators fans, and River over here being a Florida alum, making sure he got in his Billy Napier question in for Desmond Watson, but just to see that mammoth of a human being on a football field was really surreal to see. And also, too, I thought it was an incredible interview, too, that we had with him. And then you have another big storyline with Shilo Sanders, which we'll talk about here later in the show. And like you were mentioning, Caleb, Tez Johnson, someone that flashed to us in that 2-day window, and also, too, a defensive back as well that we'll speak on. But overall, I thought it was some good vibes. And also, too, you could just tell the kind of theme that Jason Light continues to try to grab through these drafts is good guys with some strong mentals and really good personalities. I think it's a really entertaining squad coming into this team.
Yeah, hard to disagree with what you said there. There's a lot of players I think that can make an impact on this team. Particularly, I think there's some defensive players that we'll talk about later on the pod that could really make a big impact. And but as far as the offense goes, Emeka Egbuka's out there getting his reps in. Tez Johnson's, finding the space there. And sometimes it's hard to tell exactly how they're going to play chemistry-wise with the other Bucs starters since they're not out there at rookie minicamp. But, it's your first opportunity to show what you can do. And it's just T-shirts and shorts, as Todd Bowles loves to remind us every time he talks. But
I love it.
It's football, man. It's football. Mm-hmm. So it's hard not to get excited about football and seeing these guys and seeing them play out there, especially in May. The heat's not great, but watching them throw the ball around certainly is. So a lot to talk about, a lot of prospects that kind of showed a little bit of what they're made of. A lot of these guys also getting used to playing football again, and that's something to kind of put out there and keep in mind. Usually even the defense kind of has a little bit of an upper hand in these sessions because the offense is still kind of learning their whole thing. And a lot of these guys, like I think Egbuka said, he wants to get his feet out under him and play some football for the first time in a while. That pre-draft process is exhaustive. You're doing a lot. You're constantly jumping around places while you're trying to get drafted. So for a lot of these guys, they're playing football for the first time in a long time, and I'm sure they love it just as much as we do.
Yeah, absolutely. And sticking there, you guys have both mentioned Emeka Egbuka, the wide receiver taken in the first round, which was a shocker and a surprise to, all of the crew and even us in the media. We're not really expecting it either. So we'll stick there on the offensive side of the ball. Obviously, you start the draft with a wide receiver, and then you cap off the draft with a wide receiver in Tez Johnson, bringing in some other guys, quarterbacks, offensive linemen as well through the undrafted free agent market. They're following the draft. Who's kind of sticking out to you? I know we know what we're getting with some of these guys and what they're going to be able to bring, but they're having a chance to get back on the field, show the coaches what they have, show the media what they have if we haven't particularly paid attention to them at the collegiate level. So who's really sticking out there on the offensive side of the ball?
I think the biggest storyline for us being on hand, and all of us will be there for training camp, and the biggest one, probably wide receiver room. It is going to be highly competitive all around. Like we were just mentioning, Tez Johnson was someone that got drafted very late, is going to have an opportunity to compete and make this roster. And you could tell how, Josh Grizzard, we're getting a first good feeling too of how he's going to work with this offense. I don't think it's going to be much of a massive change. We're not expecting something like that, but this is now his offense. Liam Cohen, he's off and he's with the Jaguars. So we get a really good feel now of how they're going to utilize these guys. River, you can point to it here. We were talking about it while watching. Emeka, you love the motion, you like movement, you like
at snap, pre-snap motion enthusiast, and there were some interesting looks. There's some interesting
tell the
looks
listeners about what you thought about that, because I thought that was something that stood out to both of us of the movement.
Yeah, Mike Evans called it eye candy with Liam Cohen last year, and you're definitely seeing a lot of that, a lot of at snap and pre-snap, like I mentioned. I believe there was one play. Sometimes it's kind of hard to see in between like the wall of players that you have, but we both agreed. Logan, there's one play we saw where Egbuka was lined up kind of outside, and then he actually motioned into the backfield for one play. So Grizzard's going to bring a lot of creative stuff to this offense, and under that Mike McDaniel sort of scheme, you did see a lot of 4 wide receiver sets. So now that you have Egbuka and you have Jalen McMillan, a lot of people are saying, "No, McMillan's going to be wide receiver 4. He's going to get knocked down a peg." And while that's probably true for some cases, you might see them utilize a little bit more of this 4 wide receiver look because they have those weapons, right? Mm-hmm. Todd Bowles said you can never have enough horses. So I think now they got some. They might try and get them all on the field at once. And again, rookie minicamp a little early to tell exactly where that offense is heading, but you can see a lot of those hallmarks of the Liam Cohen offense still remain there. And really excited to see how Grizzard kind of puts his own little touch on it going forward. And we saw a little bit of that at rookie minicamp. So still holding some stuff close to the best.
Yeah, and I think, too, it's going to rely on the health of Chris Godwin. Like, that's something we're going to be monitoring very heavily going into it. I'm sure we're going to be asking on a week-to-week basis as we get closer into training camp and going through OTAs of, what it's looking like timeline-wise for Chris Godwin, because I felt like it kind of got a little bumpy there in the recovery process for him, and it might be lingering a little bit longer. We don't know fully yet from, Todd Bowles and the Bucs, but that's going to play a part in what this wide receiver room is going to look like throughout training camp, because now, Jalen McMillan had that strong ending to the season last year. And then you also got a guy like Trey Palmer, but then you also, too, you're looking for, a new punt returner, most likely. And with these guys, we saw that with Emeka back there as well. We saw Tez Johnson back there.
Tez definitely getting some reps there. Many people expect that's the role that he'll fill.
Yeah.
You got to earn it. You got to earn it in the NFL. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, and speaking of, we touched on Tez Johnson. The whole big thing with him is his frame, how big he is. He's not, the quickest, fastest guy. What were you able to make from him? And then outside of, speaking of the other wide receiver, anybody else that, should be paid attention to that, could possibly end up, whether on the practice squad 53, that could possibly, make a spot at home here with the Buccaneers on the offensive side of the ball.
Are you talking about like UDFAs who can make the team, or like anyone that impressed?
Obviously the undrafted free agents are more so of those guys, and obviously because the 2 draft picks that we have, we're speaking of already. But any of those undrafted free agents that could possibly, stick with the squad in whatever sort of fashion.
Yeah, I think Tez moved around pretty well. You can see how he can be used as a weapon in space, and the Bucs in this offense, that sort of Shanahan McVay style prototype. They love that sort of thing, right? So Godwin played the Cooper Cup in Liam Cohen's offense, and now someone's got to play the Chris Godwin in this offense. Right. So that could be Chris Godwin himself or Emeka Egbuka, obviously. So Tez definitely moves around pretty well. You can see he plays pretty fast. He didn't run a great 40, and he's very small. And I think he will gain a little bit of weight. People compare him to Tutu Atwell and Tank Dell, but Tank Dell and Tutu Atwell are also still 10 pounds heavier than Tez Johnson is. So I think that'll probably come later. But we saw him take some good reps, Logan. We saw one where he caught a ball in the middle of the seam and then ran to the house, and another one where also in the middle of the seam he had a leaping sort of catch that he came down with. I think it was he had some 3 rookie tryout quarterbacks there that sometimes they don't get the ball exactly where it needs to go. But he made a good effort. Undrafted free agents is interesting, and the one we've heard the two most about, obviously, is Desmond Watson and Shilo Sanders for various reasons. And when you talk about Shilo, you got to be careful because the assumption is that you're just talking about Shilo due to the popularity that his last name brings. But Todd Bowles did mention he was very vocal out there. He did mention he handled the calls very well on defense. So he actually had a lot of good stuff to say about him. And he also mentioned that he was one of the few players that did those sort of things, in day one. So in this case, it's not all talk with Shilo. I think he legitimately did make at least somewhat of an impression on Todd Bowles. And that being said, he still has quite a long way to go, I think, to climb and get into that roster. This is probably one of the weaker safety rooms in the NFL, so there is a chance to do it. It would be here, but he's still going to have to put in a lot of legwork. There's a lot of things to improve. And like Todd mentioned, it's nice to do all that stuff when you're rookie minicamp. You can't hit, but when you can, things might change. So, I mean, that's a name that's been thrown around, I think, as far as undrafted free agents go. And then, Desmond Watson just got to get smaller. He's got to lose weight. They think he can play, but he's got to trim down a little bit.
I like his mentality. I like Desmond's mentality about it.
Yeah.
He understands that he is going to have to lose weight. And that was a lot of the majority of the media's questions is how are you going to trim down?
How is it going to happen?
You were 470, now you're to 437. Are you getting what's the goal weight? And he doesn't know that yet. He's still working with the nutritionist. All of that has to go into play. That is his big focus right now. But also, too, he's got to improve in a lot of different techniques and the way that he's going to be developed. And he said that one of his favorite players to watch growing up was Vita Vea. And he said that he did get a chance to meet him. They shook hands. I need the social media team to get a photo op of that, please. There's got to be a photo out there somewhere.
Just like him and Tez. Yeah.
I want to see Vita Vea look small compared to somebody because that's something we've never seen before. So I need to see that. So hopefully the Bucs social media team got on that. But really good interview that I think everybody should go listen to and a really fun kid to pull for. And then too, like you were saying, for Shilo Sanders, there's a lot of popularity around him. I mean, if you look on our YouTube right now, just his opening interview with the Bucs is over 100,000 views. That just goes to show, and like 800 comments, 3,000 likes. So much support is backing Shilo. So there's no problem there. But like you said, River, there's things that he has to improve on and get better at. And I think he knows that. But there's a reason why the Bucs are giving him an opportunity. They see something there, and I'm intrigued to see if that developmental process finds a groove for Shilo, because I think for a locker room fit, I mean, it seems like it would be a good one. Definitely what you have with Baker Mayfield leading the charge on this roster. It just seems like a really fun locker room to pull for. But the pads weren't on, but if the pads were on, I think that plays in a positive for a guy like Shilo Sanders that likes to come down to hit, likes to have takeaways and be a game changer for you. And, we'll see what ends up happening, but these are fun, undrafted free agent storylines to follow as we head into what should be a heavy competitive training camp.
Yeah. And I mean, there's, question marks regarding both of these guys and probably pretty much every undrafted free agent as well. But both guys seem very, very happy to be in Tampa Bay. Obviously, Desmond Watson being from the area, fairly close to the Tampa Bay area. And then, with his family being there as well. And then with Shilo, it's just like his energy. He's just excited to be here. He loves what Coach Bowles is able to do on the defensive side of the ball, and he thinks that it fits his game pretty well. So that's exciting to see. And while we're on the topic of undrafted free agents, we have a good question here from Bink Kiss on our YouTube channel. So guys, if you are not on our YouTube channel, you're not subscribed, head over there. If you're watching on X, if you're watching on Facebook, head over there. Bucs Game Day, right there in the search bar. Click subscribe, click the notification button. You'll be notified anytime that we're going live. That's how you get your questions and or comments up here every time that we are going live over here on Here the Cannons. But Binkus poses this question. What are your thoughts on the inside linebacker undrafted free agents, since that seems to be an area of need still?
Well, there's two, if I recall correctly. There is John Bullock from Nebraska, linebacker. Jason Light likes the Nebraska guys. I know that Todd Bowles said he thought pretty highly of him as one of the more vocal guys out there on the field, just like Shilo. So, that could be encouraging. And it could be, again, uphill battle to make the roster. I did just write about Nick Jackson from Iowa, who the Bucs just picked up as at UDFA. Think about this. NCAA record for most games played with 73 in college. Wow. Which is just astonishing. He ended with 555 tackles, which is the second most in NCAA history. So you can say a lot about him, but you can't say he's not experienced, because he definitely has played football for a while. We didn't really see him at rookie minicamp we did a little bit, but he was a later addition. So we'll see how maybe he goes when it comes to playing in OTAs and mandatory minicamp and stuff like that, because they didn't end up signing him. But yeah, they like Servastier Dennis, and that could be both a good thing and a bad thing. I think we talked about on this pod, because the little we've seen of Servastier Dennis, he played well, but the reason we've seen so little of him is because he can't stay healthy. So if he can do that, he needs to still prove that he can consistently play like that. And if not, you've got some of these guys here that can maybe contribute. And there's kind of a swing in the NFL, I think, towards now trying to get more experienced college players, which I've always said is kind of a double-edged sword, because it means that they're experienced and they've played a lot of football. But when they play really well at the later part of their career, is that because they've found something and it's clicked, or is it because they've just played more football than the freshmen and sophomores they're playing against? So that would be a question probably for a guy that has played 73 football games. But if they like leadership and they like what they see and they like the physical stuff, then see what happens.
A lot of this is going to be relied, like you said, on Dennis staying healthy. And I don't know for you guys, if you got a theme from Todd Bowles, it's been very apparent that he has been calling out players on not staying healthy, and that's becoming a problem for the Bucs. And it was a problem last year. It's always been a theme. Back when you had Carlton Davis always getting hurt, did the same thing this last season with the Lions. Then he's off and he's probably going to do the same thing with the Patriots. Going to miss time. I'm going to go ahead and just bold prediction there that Carlton Davis will miss multiple games next season.
That's a hot take. That's a hot take.
What a crazy hot take that would be. But then also too, look at Jamel Dean as one, and he's talked about other guys as well. And it's been apparent, and with Servastier Dennis, being able to go healthy throughout this offseason, going into training camp, and then getting into the season, they think very highly of him, and we see him on the field. It's a good product, and just doesn't have a ton of experience at the NFL level, but they're expecting a lot out of him and are relying on that. And that's why we saw in this draft, they did not prioritize it as much as we had thought when we were going in through our mock draft. So that's another storyline. There's gonna be tons, but that's one going into this training camp where
big one.
You got to hope not only Dennis stays healthy, but guys behind him show you some promise and feel good, because you just don't know if Dennis is going to be healthy again for another season. So something I'm keeping an eye on.
Yeah, and I would point out too, Levante David's 35.
Yeah, and, exactly.
He's played more than 12, 13 years in the NFL, so he needs to stay healthy as well. And so if you've got that tandem of David and Dennis, we've both seen them play a very good football. And David's usually not hurt very often, but he's also getting older. So interesting kind of look at the linebacker room this year and the people that they put trust in to stay healthy. I agree. It will be a pretty big defensive or a pretty big thing to look at defensively.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be very interesting to see what kind of unfolds with, that inside linebacker room. And we'll see how, those two guys that you had mentioned earlier, River, how they kind of progress throughout the rest of OTAs and training camp or whatever it may be. But I do know that the Bucs, the defensive coaches, Todd Bowles, are high on the guy that they picked up in free agency out of Miami with the Dolphins to kind of replace KJ Britt, who was here. So they're high on him. Seems like they're pretty comfortable in letting him, kind of roam that level, especially in the case of Dennis not being healthy. But the depth there is very thin. So that's a little bit tough there. And the defense, apparently they're moving everybody around, right? So they are, trying out Tyke Smith at different levels at safety, at nickel, also Christian Izzian. They're, trying them out at different areas too, both at safety and at nickel cornerback as well, just in case those injuries do, pop up, which we saw a lot of last year, and we hope that doesn't happen again. But that'll transition us right into the defensive side of the ball, which is probably the one aspect that everybody wants to know about, right? Obviously, we've talked a little bit about Shilo Sanders and Desmond Watson, the two big undrafted free agents that the Buccaneers were able to snag there. But looking at the rest of the draft class, Benjamin Morrison in the second round, just going through individual drills, not necessarily team drills from what I was able to gather there. Jacob Parrish having like a coming out party just immediately with 2 interceptions there. I think one was a pick 6, maybe even.
I think both were pick 6s. Yeah.
Okay, well, even better. Which that is what Todd Bowles wanted. Ball
and
hawks,
shorts and t-shirts and shorts.
Right. So there's your two secondary. There's your 2 secondary guys, and then obviously along the defensive line, you got David Walker, the FCS guy coming over that we took there in the 4th round, I believe, or maybe I got it mixed up with Parrish and what rounds they were taken. And then Elijah Roberts, who was an edge at SMU, but was listed as a defensive lineman when the Bucs decided to draft him. What are you seeing from those guys in particular? And again, just, building upon what we were able to witness from just some of the content that the team has put out thus far.
I say we start off with Benjamin Morrison because everybody wants to know he's a 2nd round pick. It's a position of need there where they see, the future, where they've got to find someone that's young and they can look next couple of years, someone that can start there potentially for them. And then looking around, was this Colin need me one of those BG hats? Canada, shipping up there, Colin, is tough nowadays. I don't know how Colin doesn't already have a hat. I need to
get Colin a hat. Colin's one of our valued writers here at BucsGameday, and he deserves a hat.
Exactly.
So.
But Benjamin Morrison, did not see him in the team drills, but to see him out there doing drills and moving around was a really good sign, because I
think encouraging.
Yeah, it was encouraging going into it because we did not know how limited he would be. And yes, a little bit limited, but really what Todd Bowles told us was that he really has just got to get back into game shape. Of course, I'm sure too, different ways, moving around left to right. Want to be very careful at this moment in time, but to see him jumping, warming up, stretching, then doing some drills, catching the ball, doing some runs, and then also doing sprints while team drills are going off on the side is a good sign. I feel very optimistic that we're going to see a lot of action from Morrison once we get into training camp. But when we go over to Jacob Parrish, man, I mean, that was one name that we had to continue writing down in our notes from the 1st and 2nd day. He actually talked to the media on the 2nd day to us and said, I got that takeaway on the 1st day, but I want to get another one. My goal of mine is to come away with another interception. And sure enough, about an hour and a half later in team drills in the IPF, as it was storming outside, we ran into there, and sure enough, too, Jacob was hauling butt, and he was able to come away with an interception, which would have been a pick 6 as well. And you could just see the speed. Todd Bowles also spoke on him, saying he was the fastest player on the field. And you could tell, I mean, he read the quarterback's eyes very, very nicely, and then jumped on the ball, and just a quick twitch. And it's on a video. I think they posted it yesterday on the Bucs social media account, but he's got quick instincts, and you really like that. And if you want to get more playing time, Todd Bowles wants to have more takeaways. He wants more takeaways. It's been pressed very heavy this offseason. They've got to do a way better job of it. If you want to get out there and get, more playing time and have the opportunity to see the field more, do what Jacob Parrish is doing. And he was by far probably your star standout from rookie minicamp.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting too on Parrish, who, you said a lot about him and how he's looked, but Todd Bowles was asked, is this a guy who can play outside corner? Because, they're training him majorly at nickel, and Todd said no, he It's not that he can play outside corner. He is an outside corner. So they think that that's what he is and that he can go back into nickel where they're training him. So I think they like that versatility about him and that he can move in different places, because there's another thing that Todd Bowles really enjoys. It's definitely the ability to move outside and inside and kind of give you some different looks. So his height is really the big question. But if he was a few inches taller, I mean, he might have gotten picked way higher. I mean, blindingly fast, plays really good instincts, big pursuer to the ball. He's very tough. He told us in the media room that whenever I'm lined up against someone, I'm the better player. And, to be able to play like that is a big key to, taking your matchups in the NFL and feeling that confidence to kind of get your work done. And if he can continue that mentality and he can keep playing that way and play fast, it's not going to be a detriment to him at the next level. So I think that's a name to definitely watch. And like you mentioned, Caleb, thinking about getting Tyke Smith back to safety, you can drop Parrish right there at nickel, get all those guys in the field at the same time. And Todd Bowles might be cooking with some grease. So
yeah, and I think we had major question marks going into the offseason about the secondary, and we know what you're going to get hopefully with a fully healthy Antoine Winfield. You know what you're going to get with Jamel, and you would love for him to stay healthy throughout an entire season because he is a solid cornerback for you, and you know what you have there with Zion, but there's some different pieces being moved around with like you had just mentioned, Tyke Smith. If some of these youngsters can find their groove, this is a really exciting group going into this upcoming season, in my opinion, at least defensive backfield wise. And I know, Caleb, you're also asking about some of these other guys like David Walker or also to Elijah Roberts. We had an interview with Elijah Roberts, and I just immediately remembered when I looked up his name on my phone before going to the interview and seeing the jersey and the number and everything. I just remember going back because we cover FSU. At least me and Caleb, went to FSU too as well. So we know that SMU game. We know what went down, and what I came away with it. I was like, SMU's got some dogs. They've got some really, really good talent, and they're coached very well.
They do.
And so I feel highly on Elijah. It's so hard to tell anything, like we've been saying in this entire episode. It's shorts and T-shirts and tools.
Especially when it's a big contact position like that,
exactly.
Right? So that's going to have to
can't
wait.
tell too much outside of what the interview that he gave us. And, he's here really just to try to take on any kind of opportunity he can to help this team. But that's kind of my bigger takeaway from these bigger guys that we'll see more of and get a really good feeling once these shells, at least give me the shells. We'll take shells and once some contact starts happening, because I'm right there with Coach Todd Bowles. He's a defensive minded coach. I like the hitting parts of things. I like guys that want to get after it, talk some trash. That's when the pads come on, and we'll see where boys or want to become men when the pads, which will be later at the end of July.
Put the hat on.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if you guys had a chance to speak with David Walker yet either, but from what you were able to garner, I know it's no pads, and specifically along the lines, it's very, very hard. But we do have a quick question here from D13 on YouTube. Honestly, I do think D Walker is NFL ready. His attitude is mature. What are your thoughts on his readiness / awareness for the next level?
Well, David Walker is another one of those guys that we were just talking about who's played a lot of games of football. He played quite a bit there at Central Arkansas. And when you talk about that sort of competition, you could say, oh, it's not that good of competition. But what it does is it really gets those reps under your belt. And that's the good thing about being a guy that plays a while. And in David Walker's case, he went to the Senior Bowl, and he's still impressed against that top competition, right? So that's what you were looking for there. So I would agree. Every time I talked to David Walker, he seemed like he had a really good head on his shoulders. He seemed very mature. One of the things he talked to us that stuck out to me was that someone asked him, well, why didn't you leave Central Arkansas, right? And he said, I could have left Central Arkansas. He said, I could have started somewhere, in the Power 5, but I wanted to leave a legacy at Central Arkansas, right? I wanted my name to be important there. I wanted to break those records, and I wanted to stick with the team and do that. And that says a lot about a guy, especially when I don't think anyone would have blamed him for going and playing for a P5 team and getting his name out there further. But he chose to do that. And I think that type of attitude combined with that experience under his belt would be a good combination for making someone NFL ready. Now he needs to prove, obviously, he has the physical skills and the acumen to play against NFL talent. And we'll see that a little bit like when Logan said when the pads come on, and then, of course, when he rotates in with the edge rushers. But as far as being ready for this and, having the mentality to be an NFL player, from what I've heard from him and talked to him and what I know about him, I think he certainly is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think that's something that was kind of a question mark with Braswell last year, probably in a different scenario, if you will, just because he didn't see the field all that much. Like he was, strictly used for pass rush downs and didn't particularly play every single down when he was at Alabama. And his biggest thing, which I think one of the defensive coaches said it today, is that they're excited and expect him to take a big leap this year, but that he's still trying to adjust to that NFL speed. So even if you are playing in the SEC and with that level of speed, that level of physicality, it isn't going to necessarily translate over to the NFL level, which is a huge thing, which could go the other way around here with David Walker as well. Like, okay, well, he didn't play at even the FBS level. He played even at the FCS level. So how's he going to be ready? But as River had mentioned, his performance at the Senior Bowl, was out of this world, going up against round one.
I bet you he'd hope he goes to the Pro Bowl. Yeah.
Right. I mean, he went up against, sorry, Commander Game Day, but he went up against Josh Connerly Jr. And he absolutely destroyed him there at the Senior Bowl. And that's, a guy who went in the first round to the Commanders. So, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how he does, but he does seem like he's there. He's ready. He's mature. And he's got the right attitude to come in and fit well. So I think it is the Todd Bowles, way, right? Like the type of character guys, the guys who want to be there and play ball, along with the on-field production, which has kind of been different from last year. It was kind of, what kind of ceiling can we get with guys? And this year it's all production, whether that's, at the undrafted free agent level or the guys that they drafted. And so I'm excited to see, as OTAs and training camp play out. But quick question before, we start to unwind here a little bit. Who do you see from those guys in the unrestricted area or the undrafted area, that could have the potential to make this 53-man roster? I know we talked about a couple of them earlier. You can go ahead and shout those guys out again if you want to, but anybody else particularly stand out at this point? I know it's early. I know there's no shells, no pads yet, but just anybody that off the cuff that you can think of.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because I think there's going to be less that make it this year than there have been in the past because the Bucs have brought back a lot of players. The offense I think the offense is entirely back and has some new additions in Egbuka and Tez. And then the defense kind of got revamped a little bit with some new players. But a lot of those guys that the Bucs drafted are probably going to start or at least get some playing time, right? Safety is something to watch. We mentioned Shilo Sanders. JJ Roberts from Marshall was at least in college, played better safety. So I think that's definitely something to watch, especially if you have special teams value. That's definitely a position to kind of look at. And one of these linebackers, you never know. We mentioned the linebackers earlier, but just look at the weak rooms really on the team and figure out who is the best chance to break through. Like a wide receiver is going to have a tough time breaking through in this Bucs team right now.
Yeah.
But a linebacker or a safety, those are two positions of need. So you got to have special teams value to be a UDFA, I think, at least in the interim. And I think that's something that Shilo can do and something that JJ Roberts can do. I think it's something these linebackers like Bullock can do. So that's going to be the big thing. And we'll see how it goes. But I think it's going to be a lot harder this year for UDFAs to crack that roster than it has been in times past. You might get some less Christian Isian type players and have them focus more on who they have on the roster right now and who they drafted.
I'd be very interested to see how well Shilo does throughout this process because, like I was just saying, he's got that big support system, but he understands how this kind of game works. He's going to have the advice from his dad, and he has tons of connections as well. I think he and Antoine Winfield, they connected, and then Shilo already kind of leading the charge of taking care of the snacks and bringing in whatever needs to be brought in. He has that leader kind of aspect, and you saw it on the field. I mean, I noticed it first off, right off the bat, that someone's out there being very communicative, and I think that's something rare you don't see a whole ton from in rookie mini camps as these young guys coming in here and chirping and being able to tell, hey, you're on assignment, I'm off assignment, where do I need to be? Or also to telling your teammate where they need to be, all that kind of stuff. Communication is really key, definitely as a defensive back and a safety back there, overlooking your entire defensive side of the ball. So I'd be interested to see where things go for Shilo Sanders, but I thought it was a nice start for him, a good jump there, and interested to see too the storyline of Desmond Watson and how things go on there. But I would imagine we're going to start getting some updates there on him trimming off some weight, because that is definitely a goal, I believe, of what the Bucs are going to want to put him through and get into that, 410, 415 range. Getting close to that would be great for, close to training camp, I would imagine. So some really cool storylines, but like River said, it's not going to be the easiest stretch for some of these guys, but there are some needs in some position groups, and these are some names to keep a close eye on moving forward. And we have tons of content coming all across the board at the BucsGameday site.
We sure do.
And then too here on the YouTube, as we continue to try to make more of a focus of getting on here for you guys and our training camp videos. I know Caleb will be there with us for some of those as well. And those did very well last year, and we'll keep on doing that for you guys this year.
Yeah, I wanted to bring up one more point before we were wrapped up here. A comment from Blinkus on YouTube here saying, what about the O-line UDFAs? And I wanted to point out too, something I forgot to mention, that the Bucs signed Ben Chukwuma from Georgia State. He's a Nigerian player who hasn't played a lot of football, but they actually gave him $300,000 guaranteed, which is the most of any undrafted free agent signed after the draft. So by that venture, yes, I think a player like that, they probably have an idea that they want him to stick. They want those guys to be rotational linemen. They got Charlie Heck there to be kind of their new swing tackle, but they still need to kind of get those guys. And then Jake Majors from Texas, who's a center that they brought in, who I like a lot. They were cross-training him at center and guard rookie minicamp. So those guys could also stick around as UDFAs, I think.
Mm-hmm. Oh, might be muted, Caleb.
Caleb, you're muted.
I missed an opportunity there. I'm kidding.
There you go. Shame.
Hit me with the Game of Thrones, walk of shame. Got it. But yeah, I mean, it's another one of those areas, right, where it's hard to tell this early. It's kind of a lot of step back, just move, see how their footwork looks and all of that until those paths come on. So right now, hard to gain a real idea on where things are headed there for the Buccaneers. But as things continue to unfold, it's going to be hot and heavy here through, the rest of May into June and July, and then leading up to, preseason in August and in the regular season. So it's going to be coming at you guys fast, which is why we implore you to head over to BucsGameday.com. Check out all of our written content, all of our articles over there. Head over to YouTube. If you're watching anywhere other than YouTube, head over to YouTube. Click that subscribe button. Hit that like button as well. Click that notification button. Mash it. If you get that notification button, you'll be notified anytime we're going live, anytime videos are being posted as well. We have the Shilo Sanders interview up there right now that is doing fantastic. So you guys go and check that out if you haven't already. We have the schedule release tomorrow. Thank you. Can you guys help us get to 50 likes? Really appreciate it. If we could get up there, we're getting in there, we're inching close. I know some people aren't able to join us, and if they're watching later, please do the same. Like, subscribe, hit that notification button. But we have a schedule release coming tomorrow. Tomorrow night at 7 p.m. is when they officially, go live. We know the opponents, but we'll know when we are going to be facing off against them, from whether it be on the road or Raymond James Stadium. No international games for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this year. So
no, but you might want to get your turkey ready. Those are to be believed. Yeah.
What is that, a teaser there, River?
What he said?
You teasing something there for the listeners?
Hey man, rumors have it that if you're having Thanksgiving dinner, perhaps maybe the Buccaneers will be on TV at that time. So let's see what happens.
The rumor is out there, but we'll find out the rest as well tomorrow, and then we'll likely have a nice little pop-up show for you guys come Thursday, probably around the same time we had today. But with that being said, I want to thank Logan for coming on here and joining us, the founder. I know it's hard to get his attention away from everything else that he does to make us such a successful game day media company as a whole. So really appreciate you coming on, man. River, thank you as always. And with that being said, guys, fire the cannons.